we're doing great.
As somebody who's prepared for a couple of Mannings previously in your career, is there anything that comes to mind here? Or from the past?
Yeah, I'm worried about what his uncles are telling him right now. It's probably the biggest thing for me. You know, I got a chance to actually see Arch last summer, and just, you know, he's big, he's strong, he's really athletic. He's got a very live arm. You know, he can push the ball downfield. So he's a really good player. This is, a huge challenge for us, but it'll be good. It'll be fun in the shoe. I'm excited to have our fans out there yelling and screaming, see how he handles all the pressure of that too. But I'm sure his uncles and his dad, and his grandfather, they've pretty much groomed him as a quarterback, his entire life. So he's a great kid. He's a tremendous young man. But that'll be a big challenge for us. Should be fun.
Go second row middle. Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Matt, what have you seen from Malik and Jalen as they've been competing for that safety job? What do you feel like both of them can bring to the table this year?
Yeah. Great competition, back and forth. I think both of them have really made great gains, certainly with the communication. I think that's one of the biggest things in the back end is tying together the coverage, whether you're talking to the corners outside or down to the linebackers in front of you. There's some things in there communication-wise that are really critical, and both those guys have done a good job. Certainly deep field play, being down in the box, kind of some of the different skill sets that those guys need. I think those guys have competed really well. Maybe there's a little bit of a difference in play with those guys where the positions that they're in. But still making plays out on the field, which is good. I think it's been great for us to have some tackling, some live tackling out there too, which has been good to see those guys in those spots. So been a good competition, really. We'll, have some things, obviously, where we can play a lot of guys and put a lot of people on the field, especially at the safety position. So that's one of the advantages.
Is there a leader in that competition, or do you expect play?
Yeah, I would expect them both to play and kind of, be out there. The first game's always tough too, right? It's going to be hot. It's going to be a lot of plays. We're going to see a lot of stuff. So these guys haven't played in a while. So going out there and playing, whatever it is, 70 whole snaps for an entire game, I think you got to be smart with that.
Go fourth row middle. Patrick Murphy, 247.
Matt, how far in do you feel like you've got this defense in terms of what you envision it, and how much more as we get through a season and you're in games do you think it will evolve and we'll see some different things?
Yeah, it's a great question because I do think this is like a journey. The season will be, it'll have its challenges and its turns and its changes as you go through. I think the biggest thing for us coming up with the game in front of us is just making sure it's really clean, making sure it's something the guys can go play fast, play aggressive, and communicate well, and make sure we're not doing anything to beat ourselves in those situations. I think that's going to be really important. And as that grows and as the confidence of some of the things that we're doing and those guys just playing together, it's just a lot of people that players that haven't been on the field together and communicating at the same time. So we still have to go through that process on game day, and you'll learn a lot on game day. So, that journey is exciting. It's a challenge, but, it's something I do expect to grow as we go through the season. Yeah.
Third row on the right, Jeremy Birmingham.
Matt, as you've started to open up the encyclopedia is what I'll call it, how have you seen Julian adapt to that? And from your perspective, what has he shown that gives you confidence as the former head coach that he's the right guy to lead this offense?
Yeah, two great young kids battling it out. I thought it was fun to watch them compete, and obviously to be on the other side of it, knowing some of the different looks that we might have or the coverages and the reads. Both of them, really did a great job. And, Coach Day and Coach Hartline and Coach Fess, obviously, doing everything they can to evaluate that. For me, it was really what I saw is just, decision making when I'm showing different looks or we're having different coverages or we're rolling through practices without scripts, where things are going to be moving at a little bit of a different pace, and being able to handle the tempo of the offense and things like that. And the huddle adjustments at the line of scrimmage, we kind of threw a bunch of different things at them. And I think his poise, his ability to kind of see the defense and then also really make quick decisions. Lincoln's a great athlete too. He did a good job, against us, obviously. And but Julian, I think just his ability to kind of like see the defense, make the decision, get the ball out quick. And I think that's, one of the things you want in a quarterback that's, going out there in a big stage and in a big game here is just make sure we're taking care of the ball and doing all those things that you need, to help yourself win.
Front row on the right, Austin Ward.
Matt, when you mentioned the possibility of Caleb playing some of the big nickel, I know it's not as simple as like, how much would you like to do this? It could change from week to week. What are the scenarios or situations where you think that makes sense to use Caleb there?
Yeah. I think as much as you can get him as close to the ball as possible, he's pretty good when he's around the ball. He usually makes some really good things happen. So if we're in a situation where maybe dictated by formation or coverage where, we're not getting him close enough to the ball, then we need to get him closer to the ball. We need to put him in those positions. Sometimes, whether it's formation or down and distance can determine that too, what kind of packages that you're running to have him in those different spots. He's such a great communicator. He's so strong with communicating, to the deep guys or to the down guys and being in all those different areas. And his ability, just his football savviness is, it's incredible just to be able to see the game. A lot of times, sometimes he's seeing the throw, but I think before the quarterback's made up his mind where he's going with it, he just has a great feel. So that's part of the decision of just trying to get him in those spots, and making sure that he can be around the ball as much as possible.
Fifth row on the right, Cameron T. Robinson, the Athletic.
Matt, kind of off that, you talk to people on the offense, and they always talk about how smart Caleb is. I think Brandon was just saying at times Caleb calls out the plays before they even know what's going on. When you have a guy who's that smart, and you try to find that balance of where to play him with the ball or how to get him in the right spot, how much do those conversations with Caleb help you really try to, still kind of new to him, find out where that balance is?
Yeah, football conversations with Caleb are great. It's like talking to another coach, and the great part as a coach to be able to talk to a player that has that sort of vision and feel for the game, is you can understand like, hey, he can really see this. Maybe we can do this adjustment, or he can, be in this alignment and still be able to do this job. Okay, well then we can maybe have this sort of look or this sort of pre-snap alignment. And really, that's the most important thing, right? It doesn't really matter what I see or how I perceive the game. It's what he sees through his eyes, and that's something that I've done in the past. I think as a coach, you become a good coach through great players, and Caleb is a great player. And if you just listen to the things that he's telling you that he sees, now I can maybe help move him into some positions to be in spots. But certainly, we've got 10 other guys on the field that we have to coordinate with all of that and make sure that the chess pieces are kind of lined up in the right spots for the defense to succeed as a whole.
We'll go second row, Stephen Means.
When you look at Arbel and Sonny specifically and the type of athletes they are, mixed with, I guess, what you have with the rest of this defense, how does that get your creative mind kind of flowing and what you would like to do with them other than just maybe traditional linebacker things?
Yeah, really versatile players, guys that have great length, great size, great speed. They can cover a lot of range. I think it's more than just, the skills that they have. And when you're looking at scheme, it's just kind of the space that they can occupy. They really, I think, in coverage or in the run game, they can eat up so much ground, and they can really make it difficult on the middle of the field of the defense, and I think that's something that we always want to try to do a good job of, is being strong in the middle. And when you got guys with that sort of athleticism and that sort of size, there are some certain things you can do, different, pieces that you can move around. And that's what makes it fun, with those guys. So you're just trying to make it as difficult as possible in the offense to know where they are and then how are they going to play in those different roles. But the versatility that those two bring, I think, you got to really like what they can do in the different jobs.
Front row center, Bill Rabinowitz.
Maybe the biggest question is still the interior of the defensive line. Right now, Edric's obviously had the injury at the start of camp. How close is he to being fully healthy, and how do you feel about the depth there?
Yeah. Coach Shea's done an unbelievable job. We really replacing 4 starters up front, so it's brand new across the board. Some of those guys have played before, which is great, but it's really trying to gel a whole new unit together. Same thing, alignments, positions, communication. So I think that group is really, Coach Shea's done a great job with them inside. I think the technique and the fundamentals of just watching young players grow with what he's asking them to do has come along, and Edric missed some time there, but I think he's catching up. He's a very talented player. He's got a lot of ability, so he catches up quick. But you still want those reps. You want to feel the different blocks. You want to be able to see the protections. You got to be able to understand how you're going to use your leverage and play with good fundamentals. And you just try to make up that time as fast as you can. And he's progressing, at a good level, and we'll see where we are, come 9-10 days, whatever it is from now. But he's making great progress.
Second row on the aisle, Bill Landis.
Matt, I've heard you say before that part of your job as a defensive play caller is to anticipate what the opposing OC is going to do and to identify rhythms and things like that. Given your experience and the fact that Brian is kind of doing this for the first time, do the two of you have any kind of dialogue about what you see and how you can help him as he kind of learns the ropes?
Yeah. I really enjoy like when you have that cross conversation between offense and defense, and I love the game, so I like special teams too. I'm going to talk about all that stuff and the things that you see, and I think the more you can relate all of it together from a fundamental standpoint, then it's all ball. There is things that go back and forth between all three phases. Certainly from offense to defense, I think we're always having that conversation of like, hey, maybe this didn't really hit, but I see this space, or this might be, not good against maybe a coverage or a defense that we're playing. And I'm going to look at that and say, hey, I'm seeing these tells or these tips, or, this pattern is really okay, or when this guy's in this position. So I think that's important to do as coaches, and especially in a situation where, we're not practicing against another team, we're not playing against another team in preseason like I've been used to, where you can kind of like, make a trial run at it. You're really playing against each other. So that feedback, that direct feedback is really helpful. It's been great for him to really help me, in some of the college things that I'm not used to, that I have to be ready for and prepare for and make sure the defense is ready to go. So he's been a huge help with that. But same on the other end of it, where I'm showing maybe some different looks and trying to do some confusing things in there for the quarterbacks and telling them what I'm seeing and why I'm doing those things. So, it's great football convo for sure.
Over here to the right, Dave Holmes.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys who are going to be first-time starters in a game of this magnitude, but for you personally, it's been, more than 20 years since you've been on a college sideline? And certainly a game of this magnitude. Are you feeling some of the adrenaline and jitters as you get closer to your first big-time college game?
Yeah, I'm excited for the band. The band's going to be awesome. I can't wait. And the fans. I love the college atmosphere, so I'm actually totally juiced up to kind of, I can't wait to feel all that. I'll stick with our process, and make sure that we're prepared and ready to go. And I'm sure there'll be a moment before the game kicks off where, I always like to say to them, well, if your 8-year-old self was here right now, he'd be pretty excited. So I try to make sure I kind of keep that in perspective and just understand how lucky I am and how blessed I am to be in that moment. And I'll try to soak it all in as much as I can, and then we'll put the head down and start to work.
Got time for just a couple more. We'll go to the aisle. Joe Reedy, Associated Press.
Matt, in terms of college things that you're not used to, this is the first time in a long time you haven't had preseason games to kind of prepare. Just how much of a learning curve is that, knowing right out of the chute it's for real?
Yeah, you definitely appreciate those situations a lot more now that you don't have them. I think one of the things preseason games in the NFL that was great was really game day operation. What does it look like with the coaches upstairs, coaches downstairs? What does it look like with the communication, the adjustments, halftime? All of those things you kind of get a trial run for. We used to say, everyone needs training camp. We used to say it all the time, and that's from everyone in the entire organization. So we try to do as much as we can to simulate that, obviously, as we go through camp. But there's nothing like having that game day experience to kind of make sure everything is in place and ready to go. The other part that's a little bit different is when you practice against other teams. I think you kind of get a gauge of different sort of matchups and different sort of level of competition, which is good. Practicing against the same team over and over and over again, so maybe you're looking for a little bit of a change of the competition. So we're going to be out the gate right away. This will be a big one. It's going to be fun. So we'll see how it goes. But it is a little bit different.
You've seen Peyton and Eli. Anything that you've seen in Arch that same qualities or traits and all three?
Yeah, that's a great question. Peyton and Eli are so different too. As players, both very smart. And Arch has that same football IQ level. Arch probably faster. He's probably more athletic than those two. But we've had some battles with those guys. Those are great players, and it's a great family. From Archie all the way down. I have so much respect for them, and I'm sure it's exciting. But right out the gate, we'll see how this goes.
Third row middle, Spencer Holbrook.
Yeah, Matt, from your time in the NFL, and sometimes you guys had to trust rookies, how much has that kind of shaped the way that you found yourself being able to trust freshmen on the field this year? And have you noticed that at all in yourself, that maybe you're more willing to trust the freshmen in certain settings than some of these coaches who have only been in college?
Yeah. I can't really speak on anybody else. I'll say for myself, I think one of the things you try to do early is making sure that they're in a job that they know really well, and then they can do, and they can build some confidence with that job. I think that's important when you have young players or rookies, whatever it may be. If you're asking them to do some really complex things, that's hard. I think there's always a level of, in practice, you might be like, all right, I think we got it. But then when you get out there with the fans and the stadium and the pressure of the game and all that, you're maybe at a risk of not having it be the way you want to. So trying to keep it very clean from that aspect is really important, and try to build them a little confidence early in the game. I think once the game settles, you see those guys kind of like, all right, still the game. We're out there playing football. So that'll kind of be the key for the young guys when they get out there, is just make sure they really understand the job that they need to do, so they can do it, fast and aggressive, and maybe kind of just block out everything else that's going on from the atmosphere.
Got time for 2 more. We'll first go to Dylan Davis and then Bill. Go ahead.
The other day, Ryan was talking about Jermaine Matthews, and he said that he's developed into a bit of a big leader for the team, and somewhat unexpectedly. How have you seen Jermaine grow just in your time with him and as a player and as a leader?
Yeah. Talk about energy, excitement, competitive, loves the game of football. If you feel Jermaine every time you step out in the field, the meeting room, he's a great young man. He loves the game. He's got an unbelievable energy about him. He just kind of brightens everybody up when he's ready to roll. So I think he's got a very high standard, that he expects everybody to be at, and he holds people accountable to it, which is awesome. As a coach, when players do that, it's huge. I think that's where guys grow. But you feel his passion for this game, and that's something, I love this game. I'm passionate about this game. So you run across somebody else that's really passionate like that about the game. It's like, yeah, this is going to be great. So I really enjoy it when he's on the field. He's competitive now. He's getting after people. It's fun.
We'll wrap it up with Doug Lamorese.
Hey, Matt. Just wondering about what you see in the traits of Kenyatta Jackson and just the development that you've seen from him since you got here.
Yeah, I think he's made great strides, and I didn't obviously know him before I got here, but just even from the time I've been here, his maturity, the way he approaches the game, the way he's studying, his ability to just really try to hone in on his craft, and taking, a leadership role too, stepping in front of the group and making sure that guys are doing what they're supposed to do and where they're supposed to be from the off-season program, all the way through training camp. He works extremely hard. He is so dedicated to just trying to be the best version of himself that he can be. You're trying to do everything you can to help him as a coach, achieve that. But I think stepping out of that shell and being able to bring others along, or, hold people accountable, or make sure the group is just moving in the right direction, you can really follow his example with his work ethic and say, all right, like that's why he's, who he is and why he's going to be what he is. And maybe that's a good example for me to follow. If I'm a young player, I'm really looking to him to, kind of watch his work ethic.
All right, Coach, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Good to see everybody.